When the city puts these problem codes on employees who have been terminated because of their unconstitutional policies, not only do they have this flag in their files, but their fingerprints are sent with that flag to the FBI and the New York Criminal Justice Services. So it impacts their ongoing ability to get employment at other places.
And so now we'll just wait for an opinion, and we'll hope that the judges rule in a way that will vindicate everyone's constitutional rights, and we look forward to that day. If it doesn't happen from this court, we will be taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court.
I don't think that we can fully move on until we have this sort of reckoning, where the government really is challenged on the ways that it used its power and authority over the past 3 years, until it really does pay for the damages that are continuing to happen.
Eric Adams ending the mandate on Monday, what is that? He flinched. He flinched. That's what happened. He flinched and he said, "What mandate? I ain't got no mandate. There's no mandate. What you talking about, Your Honor? There's no mandates here. You can't find me guilty." But what's happening to Eric Adams? Multiple lawsuits against Eric Adams. Multiple lawsuits. Seeking hundreds of millions of dollars, in damages from him for what's happened from these illegal, unconstitutional mandates. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the plaintiffs that showed up. Thank you to attorneys that are here right now. Thank you to activists. Thank you to those who are impacted. Thank you to those who are not impacted, but you're here for truth, justice, and liberty. Thank you to all the great groups that are sponsoring this and that are represented here. Children's Health Defense New York chapter, Teachers for Choice, Bravest for Choice, Strongest for Freedom, Educators for Freedom, Finest for Choice, Medical Professionals for Informed Consent, New York Freedom Rally, and so many more who have held the ground, who have held the line, and have said no to these ridiculous, unnecessary, dangerous mandates that have plagued our city. But I can feel the Most High powers are here with us. I can feel that we have turned a corner, and I can feel that we got the victory. It might not be today, and it might not be tomorrow, but we got the victory. So everybody, let's pray. To the Most High powers, thank you so much for being here today, and we ask you to be with us. I humbly request the presence of all the Most High powers. I humbly request the presence of the divine masculine. I humbly request the presence of the divine feminine. And in whatever name you use to call your God and your Most High power and your spirits and your ancestors, go to that space in your heart right now. To all the Most High powers and all your glorious names, thank you so much for being here with us. We ask you to be with our attorneys. May their arguments be righteous. May their souls be righteous. And may you speak through them, God. We pray for the justices in the court today. May you touch their heart. May you touch their mind. May you touch their soul, so that their ears are able to hear the truth of justice and righteousness. And may you be here with all of the plaintiffs, all of those directly impacted, all of those not impacted, all of those here with us today, all of those not here with us today. For the benefit of all, we pray. Let's keep holding this space. Keep holding this physical space. Most importantly, keep holding this spiritual space. And now I'll ask everybody to start to come back to this physical space. Start to exit your prayer and look around at each other and look at all these amazing people. This is New York City. This is New York. They try to paint us as something. They try to claim we're something. This is what we are right here, right now. We are New York City, and we're growing in every moment. And I'm seeing my brothers and sisters coming off of the subway right now that are about to come and to join us here and to join us in the courtroom as well. And Eric Adams ending the mandate on Monday, what is that? He flinched. He flinched. That's what happened. He flinched and he said, "What mandate? I ain't got no mandate. There's no mandate. What you talking about, Your Honor? There's no mandates here. You can't find me guilty." But what's happening to Eric Adams? Multiple lawsuits against Eric Adams. Multiple lawsuits. Seeking hundreds of millions of dollars, seeking hundreds of millions of dollars in damages from him for what's happened from these illegal, unconstitutional mandates. But we have Children's Health Defense here, attorneys arguing inside. We have Nelson Madden Black arguing inside. And a lot of you know, we also have John Birch of Alliance Defending Freedom. John Birch has been on our case for a number of months now. He's been behind the scenes advising the whole time, but they stepped in publicly. ADF has won in the Supreme Court many, many times. John Birch has argued in the Supreme Court 13 times. I'm told he's won every time. I don't know if that's true, but I know he's won a lot. The Supreme Court adopts his opinion as law frequently. So he's flying in today. He's going to be arguing in that courtroom. 2 days before that, what mandates? I ain't got no mandates. I can't see any mandates anywhere. He flinched. He flinched, and we got to keep bringing this to Eric Adams. We were hoping Adams wasn't going to be de Blasio 2.0. We were hoping. We hoped, we prayed. Guess what? Our prayers weren't answered there. He is de Blasio 2.0. These mandates are owned by Eric Adams. Nobody forget that. That's whose doorstep this goes on. That's where our battle is and where our pressure is. So thank you all so very much. Stay out here, hold this space for as long as you can, as long as it's being argued.
Good morning, Your Honors. John Birch on behalf of New York City's public servants who have suffered discrimination from the city's unconstitutional religious accommodation policies. I have reserved 3 minutes for rebuttal. May it please the court.
Attorney John Birch, legendary attorney of Alliance Defending Freedom, he's argued 13 cases in front of the Supreme Court, and he's won many of them.
I will press 2 primary points this morning. First, the plaintiff public employees have stated a claim and a likelihood of success in at least 2 ways. A, the city continued to use the stricken standards that this court invalidated in Kane, treating some religious accommodation requests better than others. B, the citywide panel made individualized exemption decisions in the discretion of each panel member.
The story of this case of the fired and banned workers in NYC really begins back in October of 2021 with the Kane versus de Blasio case. A teacher named Michael Kane, founder of the group Teachers for Choice, along with 8 co-plaintiffs, sued then-Mayor Bill de Blasio for the unconstitutional and discriminatory religious exemption process. Then, about a month or so later, a group of over 200 educators filed another lawsuit, which is known as Keel versus NYC. And then finally, New Yorkers for Religious Liberty filed a case on behalf of all city workers who declined COVID vaccination for religious reasons. And with each case, we've been able to expand some of the evidence and really show the ongoing irreparable harms as the city continues to move the goalpost.
The second point is that this case is not mooted. The city concedes that even after it lifts the mandate on this Friday, that plaintiff's back pay and other damages are live. Now they're saying, well, sure, you can reapply, but we'll lock you out of your account so you can't get access to the resources that you need to do that. In addition, you've got these problem codes in the personnel files.
John Birch, he really brought it in that courtroom.
When the city puts these problem codes on employees who have been terminated because of their unconstitutional policies, not only do they have this flag in their files, but their fingerprints are sent with that flag to the FBI and the New York Criminal Justice Services. So it impacts their ongoing ability to get employment at other places.
During the hearing, our attorney, John Birch, made a huge revelation. Now, this is the first I've heard of this, as the New York City lawyer says it's the first she's heard of this. However, given how we've been treated, how the city keeps moving the goalposts, changing the guidance, playing games, I wouldn't be surprised.
The panels did not follow this court's instructions to not only follow Title VII, but also New York State and city civil rights laws. Those state and local laws prohibit the denial of an applicant simply because their views on religion changed after a conversion. So Curtis Cutler, who we explain at page 19 of our reply brief. He went through a conversion at one point in his life and became a deacon in a church. Before his religious conversion, he took vaccines. After his religious conversion, he didn't take vaccines because of his religious beliefs. And yet the citywide panel said, because you used to take the vaccines before your conversion, you're out now. So at every step, the citywide panel was engaged in individualized determination, substantial discretion, and ignoring the very rules that this court in Kane had instructed them to follow.
They asked hard questions of him, but he always had an answer, and he was on it every step of the way. And I would say in contrast, you're going to see a much less confident sounding city representative who doesn't always have answers for everything and even often admits that the city was wrong about certain things.
It's been almost a year since the vast majority of them had their employment terminated. And this is their third time coming before the court seeking injunctive relief.
Are they free to seek reinstatement at this point?
As of Friday, they will be free to reapply for their jobs, yes, Your Honor.
Is it the case that they've been locked out of their accounts so that they can't submit the information that they would need to submit in order to seek reinstatement?
Your Honor, my apologies. The first I've heard of this is from counsel this morning, and I have...
You will look into it?
Absolutely, I will look into it, Your Honor.
It would be wrong, wouldn't it?
Yes, Your Honor, that would be problematic. I have absolutely no information. I'm learning of it just now. I don't think there should be a presumption of bad faith on the behalf of the government under these circumstances. The city has decided at this juncture that given the vaccination rates in the city at large and amongst the city employee workforce, that it was going to no longer require vaccination for city employees. There's no reason to assume that they are going to, it was never considered misconduct in the first place to decline vaccination. It was a failure to comply with a condition of employment. There are no...
If it was never considered misconduct, then why wouldn't the city policy be to reinstate them now that it no longer matters whether they were vaccinated or not?
Your Honor, the city is not prepared to automatically reinstate the plaintiffs who declined to comply, who were not in their jobs for a year and a half. And the city, for various operational needs and budgetary reasons, some of these positions may now be filled. It's permitting the plaintiffs to, it will be permitting the plaintiffs to reapply for positions with the city. And there's nothing to suggest that it won't consider those applications based upon the individual's experience and qualification.
Now again, the city's mandate doesn't officially lift until today, which is Friday, February 10th. So we don't know exactly what the process for being rehired will look like. However, there were some leaked documents. They do suggest that the city knows they're wrong. They're making you sign your rights away, which is something they made you do back in 2021 if you were going to separate from them and take some sort of severance package. They made you sign your rights away to do that, which is why I never did that. I said, I will not do anything to sign away my rights. I am not quitting my job. You are firing me illegally. It's a violation of my constitutional rights. And the Constitution really is just putting on paper what our God-given rights are.
Is it the city's position that it complied with the city and state human rights laws in evaluating individual claims one by one?
Yes, Your Honor. The citywide panel was guided by Title VII and the city and state's human rights law. To the extent that the plaintiffs believe that their individual claims were not appropriately evaluated under those standards, they should bring claims in state court under those laws, but they don't state First Amendment violations. It is the city's position that the citywide panel, although it made individualized determinations, and with those individualized determinations involves some amount of discretion, but that discretion was not a standardless discretion.
What do you say to your adversary's argument that the citywide panel deemed insufficient a refusal to become vaccinated by reason of a non-denominational faith, and that would not be permitted, at least under the city's human rights law?
Your Honor, to my reading of those summaries, the citywide panel did not find that to be the reason. What they found to be the reason is they found the objection to the vaccination not to be religious in nature.
During my religious exemption process, they tried to say, well, you're Jewish, and this well-known rabbi or Jewish leader said, it's okay to get vaccinated and that you should get vaccinated. And the judges really take the city to task on this point.
So may I ask though, would you concede that the relevant legal standard for us is whether or not in the claimant's own scheme of things, it was whether or not it was religious in nature?
Yes,
like,
Your
so
Honor.
even if Judge Jacobs or I think that it wasn't religious, it was scientific, if there was a sincerely held belief that the claimant believed that it was religious in nature, that's what controls?
Yes, Your Honor.
And in fact, the city ends up conceding a really foundational piece of their argument.
Again, just to reiterate, in Kane, this court said that the stricken standards, the one that put Christian Scientists and others in this track and Catholics and others on this track over here, two different tracks, was unconstitutional. That was a free exercise violation. After remand, those who were Christian Scientists or didn't have a religious leader who said it was okay to have the vaccine just got their exemption, their accommodation. Everyone else had to get past this additional undue hardship.
Undue hardship is part of the Title VII process, that the accommodations are made if it doesn't cause an undue hardship to the employer. And even in Kane, in referencing Title VII, I think in the decision at one point, it talks about the fact of this undue hardship.
This is what they did with undue hardship. Appellant Amora Bryan, she's discussed at Appendix 199 to 255, had a remote teaching position, and yet they denied her an undue hardship because they said that she couldn't be in a classroom with kids. Or worse yet, Appellant Heather Clark, she's at Appendix 134, paragraphs 315 to 316. She was denied based on undue hardship because of classroom safety. She's not a teacher. She was working remotely and she wasn't going to classrooms. And so the undue hardship, aside from the higher legal burden that these plaintiffs had to satisfy, was being applied in a rubber stamp way that didn't reflect Title VII, New York law, or local civil rights law. And again, that's not an Article 78 issue, as Ms. Paulson said. It's a constitutional problem because they didn't follow the very rules that this court set down in Kane.
All right.
If there are no further questions, we ask that you reinstate the Kane and Keel cases and that you grant the injunction with respect to all plaintiffs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you to both counsel.
It's only when you stand up and fight, like you're doing today, that religious exercise can be protected in this country. So thank you for that. Second, I want to say thank you for allowing me to have the privilege of representing you in court today. I have read your stories, I have looked at your legal claims, and you have been treated so shabbily, not only by the city, but by all the federal judges who have examined your cases. And I am so glad that finally today we got a hearing in front of judges who heard everything that we wanted to say.
What's up, everybody? Michael Kane, Teachers for Choice in Children's Health Defense. We just came out of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and Attorney John Bursch was on fire. It was unbelievable. After about 40 minutes of argument, he literally left the judges silent with nothing to say. They hit him with tons of great questions. They grilled him on what our positions were, and he had an answer for every single thing with no delay. I was blown away by the man's brilliance. I just said this, he's almost like an amazing rapper. Like his rhythm, his cadence, the way he comes is just like, you better like have eaten your Wheaties and have your energy to keep up with him to know what he's saying. And he's just perfect, on point, and cogent the entire time.
I'm John Bursch with Alliance Defending Freedom. I was here on behalf of all the hardworking New York City public employees who were terminated from their jobs, forced to resign because they refused to violate their religious convictions and take a vaccine that they thought was immoral.
We had a wonderful hearing today in front of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. We had 3 judges who were very attentive to our case. One in particular really grilled the attorney for the city for all the terrible ways that they had treated these city employees, how they had been made pariahs because of their religious beliefs. And even the other 2 judges who started off somewhat skeptical, by the end seemed to be coming around. They understood that these employees had been mistreated and that this wasn't just a practical problem, it was a constitutional problem, one that the federal courts should redress. And so now we'll just wait for an opinion, and we'll hope that the judges rule in a way that will vindicate everyone's constitutional rights, and we look forward to that day. If it doesn't happen from this court, we will be taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court.
God bless the judges, and everybody needs to pray for the justices. We need to pray that God and their higher power comes into their heart so that they will rule wisely as they go through the papers and move forward.
Over the past 3 years now, the government using executive powers took away many of our basic rights and civil liberties, including the religious ones, which we're fighting for in these cases. I don't think that we can fully move on until we have this sort of reckoning, where the government really is challenged on the ways that it used its power and authority over the past 3 years, until it really does pay for the damages that are continuing to happen. We're going to take this case all the way. And so we're sitting here, we're waiting for the court's decision, but the only timeline I'm on is God's time.
Come on.